Alrighty, well, welcome to Books That You Read in High School, or whatever I'm calling this series. This book, let me get the actual physical copy here. Voila! Yeah, this isn't the name of it. The name of this book has two, so I'll do the other one. I think they're novelettes or whatever you call them. It's called Stepanchikovo and its Inhabitants, or The Village of Stepanchikovo. It's by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I'm gonna assume that's the correct way to pronounce that. This book is about this household in provincial Russia, which I don't know a lot about, so right off the bat, this isn't made for American audiences. This isn't made for people who don't know what life is like in this time period. So, the czars are alive and well, and serfdom is what's popping. So what's happening is there's this cat. The narrator's name is Sergey? Yeah, narrator's name is Sergey. Sergey's out in college in that St. Petersburg city. His uncle, named Igor, he's supposed to be the head of his household, but his household is like a big old power struggle. And his mother is still alive. They call her the general's lady, because she's the lady of the house, the general's wife. If you've seen Game of Thrones, you kind of get what I'm getting at. All that aside, she lives with her family, which includes her son, who kind of runs the joint for her, Igor. But also there's this family friend that stays with him named Foma. And these two characters are what you're gonna see play out. These two characters are freaking interesting, man. Dostoevsky actually wrote concerning these two characters, I put my soul, body, and blood into it. In the novel, there are two huge typical characters which took me 5 years to create, and which in my opinion are perfectly finished. They are fully Russian characters, but until now they have been poorly outlined in Russian literature. I was a little bit lost as to what he meant by fully Russian characters, but there's something about suffering in Russian culture. And the idea of suffering is big in these two characters, but they come out in different ways. Foma is a smart man, he's a learned man, but he don't really do much really. He just drinks and tells people how smart he is and how virtuous he is. But all the time, he's super aware when he's being slighted by people. So the little kid in the house, Ilyusha, has his name day coming up, and he's like, "Why are you celebrating my name day?" It's not his name day. This ain't whose name you take your name after, that's a name day. But stuff like that happens all the time with this dude. And so he's super sensitive to his own suffering, but he lives like a king. He gets all the nicest stuff in the house because he's a learned man, blah, yada, 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 everyone loves him. But really, he's just the best manipulator of everybody in the house. He just knows how to win. He's won the general's lady's favor. So, he's stupid. He's not stupid. He's not a good, as it reads in the book, he can divine nothing from human faces. So he's totally blind in this house of intrigue. If he was still in the army running a garrison, he'd be fine because he could work things out with his fists, frankly, and he can have respect on that plane, but can't really do that in the private sector. So there's kind of no place for him in this house. So he's just always made fun of by everyone in the house, and there's this whole little intrigue thing going on. That's why he got the narrator Sergey to come over, because he wants to marry Sergey to this other girl in the house. But then Foma wants to marry the girl to someone else, and there's all these problems because so-and-so likes so-and-so. And if you ever read a Tolstoy novel or a Dostoevsky novel where there's too many characters, it's a novel where there's too many characters. If you're used to it, you can deal with it, but if you're not used to it, this is actually kind of a fine way to break into it. It's not that intense. I tried to read Demons by Dostoevsky twice, and first time I got 300 pages in and couldn't finish. Second time I got 500 pages in and just couldn't finish. There's too many freaking characters. I forget who's who and what they've won and the crazy freaking psychological issues. Third time's a charm, right? I just looked up this idea on Russian culture. Seriously, if you type suffering in Russian culture, there's no lack of information about that. So there's something that you can benefit from reading this book. When you're talking to Russian people, you can kind of, get an idea about it. In the same way that if you talk to someone from Chicago, you have to you have to realize this is also a land of people being murdered and manipulation. So there's a lot of like ism in that culture. I mean, not to crap on people from Chicago. I'm just telling you, I've seen a lot of y'all, and you're all kind of off the hook. So if you're a fan of books where there's social intrigue, this will work out for you, because Dostoevsky really takes his time. It doesn't give you too much about the characters up front. Like, you'll learn about how people act, their reputation and all, but when you meet them, it really is like meeting someone for the first time after you've heard so much about them, and they're just mysteriously sitting in the corner for all the stories true, you know. And he takes his time. He doesn't, he follows the rule of show, don't tell. You're not in anybody's heads. You only see what's on their faces. So that, it really is like being there. The flip side of a show, no tell kind of book, especially when it's a period piece, is that there's a bunch of references that you're not gonna understand. Once because it's 19th century Russia, and there's cultural things that were happening at the time that you're not going to get. And twice because it's translated, and there's things in the translation that'll get lost. There's a quote here during Ilyusha's name day. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Ilyusha? Maybe not. To be sure, Foma forgave me. I forgot. This is Homeboy talking. Igor talking. To be sure, Foma, forgive me. I forgot. Though I do believe in your friendship, Foma. Come, Sergei, kiss him once more. Look at the dear boy. Begin now, Ilyusha. What is it about? I expected some solemn ode, something of Lomonosov's perhaps. And Uncle, looking proudly of himself, he could hardly sit still with all his impatience and delight. No, Papa, it's not Lomonosov, says Chashenka, suppressing her laughter in an effort. Super low-key, total show, don't tell. Lomonosov. This is a joke about I keep saying his name wrong. Igor, not knowing anything about literature. I often say that Mikhail Lermontov is the Tupac of Russian poetry. He died at 26 in a duel. You know, I kind of see a little bit of parallel there. You know, if I'm wrong, whatever. Lomonosov. If you don't know who Mikhail Lermontov is, that joke's gonna go right over your head. But I caught it, so I laughed. But at the same time, I was like, whoa, man, that's lucky me that I freaking got that. Even as he reads this, there's a big old fat sticking joke in this Siege of Pamba that as the boy's reading it, that it's supposed to be another barb at Igor, I think, but I didn't get that. But yeah, tons of things like that in this book. So it's not as funny as it could be. Those things should help the pace of the book, and because those things are missing, the pacing suffers. But that's like a me problem. It's not the book's problem. You know, you get what I'm getting at. The other thing in this book, well, that's most interesting, is that relationship again between Foma and homeboy Igor. I'm never gonna say that right. Igor is supposed to be the strong one, but Foma is the strong one because he acts weak. He's really using that victim mentality to have full control over everybody. And the way that homeboy Igor bows down to him is really, really difficult to think that he wouldn't lay hands on him. Who is going to take this kind of abuse in their own household? But that's essentially what the whole book is like. The whole book is watching Igor, and by extension, Sergei, who's really not that much brighter, trying to do these little power plays, which I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this book takes place in one day, like a day and a night. You see Igor and the other one try to have any kind of influence and power in this household, and they both just fail miserably at every attempt. And every time you see it, every time Fomor just rips apart their little plans, a jaw-dropping moment. If you like that kind of stuff, this is. I can't really recommend it because it's so out of focus in terms of culture, so it's really difficult to get through. Yeah, this is not a fundamental Dostoevsky story. It's one of his earlier ones. Yeah, I think that's it, yo. 2 arbitrary stars out of 5. 4 arbitrary stars out of 5, depending on how much you know about Russian culture. Well, that's that, kids. So next I'm either gonna do The Great Gatsby or Friggin' Jarhead, whichever comes first. Yeah, man.